This is the first time, in fact, I have got an invitation in the academic circle of World War. So this is a great honor. I've been teaching for more than 35 years, and this is for the first time. And so all credit goes to the organizers. I'm speaking for the first time in an academic circle in Goutam. So that is why, and luckily it is a good topic, and because people thought I know only Aurobindo and nothing. That was also my fault, because I keep preaching, teaching Aurobindo a lot. And so let us come back to the topic, because I will be brief, and I will go by the title. Plenty of reconstructions will be there, because there are plenty of misconceptions about Aurobindo and Aurobindo push. So the common belief is there was one Aurobindo push, who was a revolutionary, and there was one Aurobindo who left activities and focused on something else, on the transformation of the planet, of the human being. But and some biographies have also come out stressing on that there are two different men. But as Romani was speaking of L.K. Weimar is the first Western critic who recognizes the fact that Aurobindo was the first, or Aurobindo was the first critique, post-colonial critique, who in 1907 used the term, explained the term colonization of the psyche. Much before 1961, when Fanon's book, The Wretched of the Earth, came out. So thanks to Weimar. And now let us follow the title and go slowly, one by one, so that you can perceive that Aurobindo is not a part-time stuff. People think he's a part-time poet, he's a part-time politician, and he's a part-time playwright, and a part-time writer of the Life Divine, which was his dream. And I will talk about what much success he has achieved so far, because we think these are all utopias, but there are already signs of Aurobindo's age in the offing. So in Kolkata, he was Aurobindo Ghosh. He was a nationalist. And the historians, they did not notice that Aurobindo is using the word new nationalism. Not nationalism, but new nationalism with capital N, in new and nationalism. And contrary to the political definition of Sanatan Dharma, Aurobindo's concept of Sanatan Dharma is completely different. And it is simple. And he wrote it in Kolkata in 1909, much before he went to Pondicherry, at least 1 year before. He said, Sanatan Dharma means the divine in the heart of every human being. And he added, for that, the Gita, the Bible, the Quran, all have to be included inside Sanatan Dharma. And this is conceived both by the rightists who are now dominating and the leftists. So this concept of Sanatan Dharma is totally different, as Aurobindo explained, simply, and that remained with him till the end of his life, when in the ideal of human unity and the book he wrote in Pondicherry, he used the phrase, no, not just brotherhood, but brotherhood of the soul. And he wrote The Religion of Humanity 12 years before Tagore gave the Hebert lectures, The Religion of Man. Tagore was very obviously influenced. And Tagore admitted, Tagore was, both of them, it was reciprocal. Tagore met him in 1928, Aurobindo offered only 15 minutes for him, and he declined to meet Gandhi. Gandhi offered to meet him in Pondicherry, Aurobindo declined. But Aurobindo said yes to Tagore. And Tagore said to him, I am going to Europe, people are mad about me, why are you here? Aurobindo quietly said, Europe will come to me if she needs it. So there is a continuation from Aurobindo Ghosh and Aurobindo. But as my student Dr. Rima Ghosh has recently pointed out, that something is different from the language of Aurobindo Ghosh and Aurobindo. There's a drastic change. Many things Aurobindo could not express so well as Aurobindo Ghosh. And because of the power of yoga, it became very clear in Pondicherry. That is the key point in Rima's thesis. And now everybody is, an essay has come out recently in Anandabajar, also claiming the same thing, that Aurobindo Ghosh and Aurobindo are not two different people. Now, this is the issue of Sanatana Dharma which is done. Now, when he reaches Pondicherry, he gives us the structure of man, and there comes his integral psychology. It starts from 1914. Let me go back to Freud in 1906. When Freud came out with his seminal booklet, 3 essays on the theory of sexuality, Freud spoke about libido in that book. And in 1912, Jung came out with Transformation of the Libido, deconstructing Freud. For Freud, it was a negative zone, and the limitation of Freud was he could not locate where is the libido exactly located. And he also did not see it as a creative zone, which Jung did in Transformation of the Libido. And that was the point of quarrel between Freud and Jung. And 2 years after Transformation of the Libido came out, Aurobindo started writing The Life Divine. There you have the complete psychological structure of the human consciousness. So, even here, Aurobindo deconstructs Western psychology. And he says, modern psychology is an infant science. Because he takes his cue from the Upanishadic psychology of the planes of the being, planes and parts of the being, which are more detailed mappings of human consciousness. So Aurobindo added something to those things because his sadhana was more progressive than the Vedic rishis. Why? Because in the Veda there was no talk of descent of the Godhead in human life on earth. It was only indicated. Secondly, the transformation of the body was only imagined in the Veda and the Upanishads. They did not know what exactly is that. So they spoke of Chinmay Dehu, the Vaishnavas also spoke of Chinmay Dehu. But Aurobindo was the first to tell us and to map for us a destiny of the body, where he says that the body has an infinite capacity of extension, even when the soul has left the body. The body itself remembers the divine. And the body has an infinite capacity of extension. I quote from Aurobindo's Destiny of the Body, one of his last prose. He wrote it in 1947. And you can see there was a player called John T. Rhodes. And all the fieldsmen of today in cricket. The body is doing exceptional things. In the past 30 years, 40 years back, you could not imagine of this. That a body can fly like a bird. So Aurobindo was the first to tell that in the physical and also in the inside, the body will be different. And the body has a capacity for transformation and remembering. This was the new thing Aurobindo added. When you go to some bookshop, you can hear people saying, "Oi to Gitaar moto, oi to life divine Gitaar moto." These are the things we are accustomed to listening, and not knowing that humanity is evolving, the incarnations are evolving, and we do not belong to the past dawns but to the moons of the future. As Emerson had also said in one of his essays on nature, because the soul is progressive, it never quite repeats itself, but in every act attempts the production of a new and fairer good. I quote once again from Emerson, how he is very close to Aurobindo, all the American transcendentalists. Because the soul is progressive, it never quite repeats itself, but in every act attempts the production of a new and fairer good. And you will get it in Kids of Siberian also, where the comparative degree is used by kids to show the new perfection in man. So the law of evolution was there in the past. They had a concept of this. In the 6th century BC, Heraclitus had an idea of this, but Aurobindo made it clear. And the structure of the human being, that is his contribution to psychology, which is called individual psychology. And in the Life Divine, he says that all these planes and parts of the being are not happy with the other part. The physical is not happy with the mind is not happy with the prana, the vital. So everybody is disharmonious. So integral yoga means you have to integrate all these things, and then you can transform yourself. Then comes the issue of, I come to his spiritual path, I come to poetry at last. But Aurobindo keeps poetry at the center of knowledge. And he disclaimed the title philosopher. He said, "No, I am not a philosopher. I am primarily a poet and a politician." So it comes from the Rig Veda. Poetry as it is not a pastime. It is a thing which purifies our consciousness. Like Sanskrit, the language Sanskrit is not a dead frame of reference. It clarifies and purifies our consciousness. So in Aurobindo's English, he has infused the rhythm of Sanskrit. And people still don't know what he has done for humanity. And that is why more and more Muslims are turning to Aurobindo. Because they know here is a man who did not like appeasement, of course, but he claimed that more than 90% of Indians, Muslims are Indian Muslims. So they have a right to be in India. And most probably he is the most non-communal leader of India. Even if we remember Gandhi and Tagore, because some of Tagore's essays have come out recently on Facebook, which have raised doubts in the minds of our minorities that, well, he said these things about us. Not that he spoke it wrongly, but Sri Aurobindo was very cautious. He said the mentality must change. He never said that Islam is bad. He said Hazrat Muhammad is Yogi Shrestha in Gitaর ভূমিকা. I quote, Hazrat Muhammad holo Yogi Shrestha. And why did he say this? Because he was an integral person. He did all kinds of things with a unity. So, and every religion has a role to play in the future spirituality which is coming. Every religion has done some service, and that is why he never rejected. And the interesting point of Sri Aurobindo's philosophy is this, that he never discards anything of the past. He just takes the past forward. Sankaraites were terribly angry with Sri Aurobindo. When we were young, we were going to Pondicherry via Chennai. The Sankaras were fierce with us. They gave us fierce looks. That yes, Aurobindonians are going. But Sri Aurobindo did not reject Sankara. He just illuminated the Maya theory, making it more relevant to the future. Now, the point of triple transformation. Sri Aurobindo spoke of triple transformation. One is the psychic transformation, because the psychic being is our true center, and when it comes forward, it starts transforming our consciousness from the lower to the higher. And that is why in Sri Aurobindo's poetry and drama, you will see that he is both Shakespeare and he is both Buddha. He knows the lowest and he also knows the highest, and even beyond. Because as he has said, Nirvana is the starting point of my yoga. Because Nirvana is heaven we have already conquered, not earth. We have to conquer earth, we have to transform earth. And if 10% of humanity consent to change, then that will be the quickest revolution to change humanity, economics, politics, everything. In the parliament there will be new consciousness. At least in twos and threes, new people will come to the parliament. That is the way of Sri Aurobindo. So triple transformation is psychic transformation, then spiritual transformation, finally supramental transformation. Now this supramental transformation is the next stage of man. Nature cannot be satisfied with an imperfect model, because man is an imperfect being. Sri Aurobindo says man is a transitional creature, he is not final. So a new race, as Keats had indicated, as a poet of the dawn, Keats had a faint idea of that a fresh perfection is coming in future. So the law of evolution had been seen as a prescience, as a foreknowledge. For Sri Aurobindo it is clear. And so, three planes of transformation. First, starting with the psychic transformation, then the spiritual transformation, and then the supramental transformation. Now, these psychic and spiritual transformation form his new system of education, which is being taught in 20% of Indian schools now. This is called integral education, and almost 90% schools in Odisha and Gujarat. So, he is a total, like Rabindranath. You can see him from every angle. He spoke of education, of mental health, physical health, of man's humanity, of the lower, of the middle, of the higher. So, then about the supermind, the point is not the whole of humanity will be supramentalized overnight. Maybe 5% will be supramentalized, there will be leaders. But before Sri Aurobindo left his body, he spoke of a thing called mind of light. That is the intermediary between man and the supermind. that he has named overmind. This intermediary is called mind of light. And there are plenty of discussions going on in Pondicherry and Aurobindo regarding the mind of light, whether these people have already come to the planet. And one suspects that they are already in, because plenty of people are praying for us, for humanity, and we don't know them. We don't know them. The whole bus as an accident, the whole passengers are saved because one person was praying at the back. So that is why in chapter 4 of the Life Divine Aurobindo says, if there is one person liberated in one corner of the globe, it is a positive influence on the humanity. So the best way to change the world is to change ourselves. Finally, I come to the issue of poetry, because that is the main thing. Politics and poetry. Politics, because not the politics we are seeing today. It's a politics of consciousness. Because when Indira Gandhi went to meet the mother said, of all these leaders, she receives 10% of my force. Very interesting. But slowly she moved away from the mother's grace. And mother also departed in 1973. It was a sad time for her because she was continuously dragging force from her. It was sad that the mother left in 1973 and there was no support behind her. So, why is poetry at the center of knowledge? Because poetry, as the Rig Veda says, is a fire. And it has the power to purify, to clarify our consciousness. And only this can help in our yoga of the adventure of consciousness. And poetry is the highest form of art. You see the best novels written by Virginia Woolf, Dorothy Richardson, James Joyce. All the best novels are basically concealed poetry. Even Shor's part of Rabindranath Tagore, if you see, there are certain passages where I have seen, I have detected the stream of consciousness. And there is that feeling of surrealism. And these are the planes, this brings me back to Sri Aurobindo's overhead aesthetics, which put the entire thing into my head, because I was with him for many years, starting from the early 80s down to his admission to the hospital when he lost his memory. He put the entire thing into my head, overhead aesthetics, the planes of consciousness from which poetry comes. And Shakespeare is not a spiritual poet, but Sri Aurobindo says he drags his inspiration from the very high sources. That is why Shakespeare is the greatest poet. So, this is the role of poetry, and you will see that all the successful novels, the best, Virginia Woolf, even Ernest Hemingway, The Old Man and the Sea, it has a positive influence of the higher consciousness. And it is wisdom at every page. And it comes from an author who lives the life of an animal. Everybody knows. And everybody said, oh, if you have helped him, then you are gone. যদি হেমিংওয়েকে কোনো সাহায্য করে থাকো, তুই গেলে। This was, and we know his life, he was against the female, was always trying to dominate the feminine, was trying to drag their energy for his creative works, not repaying anything. But he knew he was doing wrong. That is why Hemingway is a world-class writer. To Have and Have Not is a novel he wrote in 1937. there you will see how Hemingway is writing about himself, his own wrong movements as a writer, as a person. And this is the age of Aurobindo, where poetry has to come to so many people are writing poetry. It is not bad. We don't. I have here sitting in the audience my most favorite poet, who was the HOD of Bardwan University 2 years back, and he is not just a painter. He writes poetry from higher inspiration. And so poetry is to be encouraged. Only there are people who are not writing poetry but pretending to be writing poetry. These things have been discouraged. And so, I can. This is not the place. I could totally explain Shakti Chattopadhyay's poem Avani Badiyacho through Sri Aurobindo's lens. It fits in perfectly with Sri Aurobindo's theory of overhead aesthetics. I can quote the poem and you will see how the entire inspiration comes from above the intellect. There is no touch of the intellect in Avani Badiyacho. Duarete Duniyachi Para, Duniyachi Para, Kebol Suninato Para. Avani Badiyacho. বৃষ্টি পড়ে এখানে 12 মাস, এখানে মেঘ গাভীর মতো চড়ে, পরাণ মুখ সবুজ নালি ঘাস দুয়ার চেপে ধরে। And nothing comes from the intellect. It comes from a plane above the intellect. আধেটি হৃদয়ে দুর্গামী, ব্যথার মাঝে ঘুমিয়ে পড়িয়াম, সহসা শুনি রাতের পড়া। These things, Sri Aurobindo, according to Sri Aurobindo, they come from the infinite and disappears into the infinite. Thank you.